Are we ready, brother? You ready? Okay. Okay, go ahead. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على أفضل الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد عليه أفضل الصلوات وأتم التسليم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Today, inshallah, we will continue the last talk I started before Ramadan, and I'm not sure how many attended that talk or saw it on. Okay, very good. Inshallah, I'll go through, for those who haven't attended or saw it, I will go through it just a kind of refresher, and then we continue inshallah with the topic. Today's talk is going to be about resolve conflicts, build relationships, and it's about understanding what conflicts are, how do we go about resolving them, and why do we need such skills in our lives for learning how to resolve conflicts. So conflicts, we all have. I mean, can you imagine anyone who does not have conflicts? Is that possible? Right? It's not even something that we imagine. It's kind of like a given. It's part of life, having conflicts in our lives. And the other question is, like, why do we have conflicts? What are the conflicts are really based on? Coming from where? What do we have conflicts about? What do you guys think? What are why do we have conflicts? I'm sorry? Can you speak up, please? Different interests, right? Good point. Any other reason why we have conflicts? Different perceptions. Very good. Different vision, different expectations, right? So then if we have different people around us, is really what it's coming down. We are different from the people who are surrounding us. The family, the friends, the people at work, the people in the street, the neighbors, they have different ways to look at things. And if we have certain way to do it, and they have another way to do it, they have priorities different than ours, expectations different than ours, vision different than ours. What's their right is not really what I think is right. So therefore conflicts are very likely to happen. So therefore we need to learn this kind of conflicts is for that reason, is really to make our lives, which is full of conflicts, to make it a happy life. It's not going to be free of conflict, but we will learn how to handle these conflicts to resolve it in a very satisfactory way. The last session I had was asking about where do we learn the conflicts, resolving conflict skills. How do we learn that? From your perspective, I mean, did we learn it from our parents? Did school have a curriculum like math, science, conflict resolution? Did they have a conflict resolution subject? Not likely. We picked it up from our experiences, really, from within the family, within school, within work. We tend to pick up that from just our experiences. And that's how the brain develops as we grow from childhood to teenage to adulthood. So if we have this life is full of different people around us, different perspectives, it's very likely to be full of conflicts. And if we don't have the skills to resolve these conflicts, it's very likely that we are going to live a miserable life, or it could be a lonely life. Someone would be alone and avoiding the environment around them. And the Prophet ﷺ told us it is better to be dealing with people, even if you were to have conflicts with, than to avoid them and sit in in an isolation. That's what the Prophet ﷺ told us. So therefore, from our, did we learn it from our parents? Did we learn it from our schools, from our friends? It really was never like you sat down, like you sit down and you learn it. This is, if you have a conflict, this is what you need to do. This is what you do next. This is what you need to do next, and all that. It was never like that. It was either observation, or we mimic or copy the elderly or the teacher, even though there might be also guessing, and they carried it on from their parents or grandparents. But it's really, that's how they know best. But when I asked that question last talk, I asked the skills that you learned how to resolve conflicts, how they have been effective, have they been effective for you, and you're satisfied after we resolved the conflict. So I'm going to ask the question again here. So from the skills that you know on how to resolve conflicts, how satisfied are you with the conflict resolution? So are you 100% satisfied after the conflict is resolved? How many people say 100% satisfied? I've seen heads saying like that. Okay, I'll lower it. 50% satisfied. Okay, I see one. If you're with the skills that you have, I see through 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, good. So how about 20% satisfied after the resolution? You think that the conflict is resolved, but you're not 50% satisfied. You feel like, yeah, it's 20%. It's just like one sister said, that is a bitter taste in aftertaste, or there's an aftertaste in the mouth, and that means like after Assalamu alaikum. So after the conflict is resolved, there's still something is not feeling well in the body. We feel it in our body, whether it's in the mouth, whether it's in the heart, whether it's in our our hands shake, or it's still, every time we remember that conflict, it's still not resolved. So many people say that it's a 20% effective, that what you learn. So we're stopped at 50. So majority say 50% effective. Okay, and I say that's not good enough, because when it comes to resolving conflict, it doesn't say 50% resolving conflict. It says resolving conflict. And the resolving conflict, there has to be 100% satisfaction after the conflict is resolved. You need to be 100% clear from the heart, from the mind, or your body's all happy about that experience. So every time you remember that experience, even though it's been painful, it was painful, but going, looking through what happened and how it was resolved, you're 100% satisfied with it. And that's what it's really, what we're going to be talking about today. So these conflicts or skills to resolve conflicts is going to help us resolve conflicts with the people around us. And the Prophet ﷺ, encouraged us to he told us in a hadith, "Shall I tell you something that is better than the status of fasting and prayer?" There's something that is more rewardful than fasting and prayer and charity. He said, reconcile. He said, reconciling in case of conflict, for the evil of conflict is the shaver. What does the shaver mean? The shaver of what? The shaver of deen. The shaver of deen. So it actually removes the deen. These conflicts removes the deen. What is deen? Deen is, in Arabic, ad-deenul, I'm sorry? Yeah. Ad-deenul nasiha. That's very good. Deen is advice, giving advisement. Very good. What else? So if there's conflict, is there advice? Would you advise a person that you have conflict with? Unless it's resolved, right? Unless it's resolved, he will listen to you. Because once we have a conflict, everybody's shutting their ears and only the mouth is on. Right? Even though we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, but in the conflict, we speak twice or maybe quadruple as much as we hear. So, so what is the shaver? Shaver of deen. What is the deen? The deen is deen al-mu'amala. A deen is interactions. So if we don't take care of these conflicts, we don't reconcile, the interactions with people will reduce, and therefore our deen is reduced. So that's why it's important for us to deal with conflicts, and not just deal with them in a conventional way. Like I've been introduced to the silence treatment, and people think that that's a very effective way to resolve conflicts. I 100% disagree. I spoke about that in one of the talks I had before. It was titled "Let's Talk." It's when it comes down to conflict, you want to talk. You don't want silence treatment. So please remove silence treatment as part of the conflict resolution plan from now on, if you're serious about resolving conflict. So what is a conflict? What is a conflict? We talked about that earlier. So difference in vision, difference in expectations, different in perception. But I would like us, as I mentioned last time, I would like us to change that definition in our heads from now on. I would like us to see the conflict, to be seeing it as an opportunity to reconcile. And that's a very good way to look at it, because the Prophet ﷺ told us reconciling is better than prayer, better than fasting, better than charity. So this is an opportunity for a great reward. Reconciling is, conflict is an opportunity to reconcile. So don't let that opportunity pass by, because there's a lot of rewards. The rewards are coming from what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that reconciling, you're going to have to deal with emotions. It's not going to be it's not going to be a walk in the park, as they say. It's not an easy thing to do. It's going to take struggle, it's going to be challenging, and it's just a matter of really knowing how to resolve the conflict is what would make it more effective and make it satisfactory for you and for the person that you are having a conflict with. So these are some of the causes of conflicts. Can be external, from the environment around us, and can be also internal. And people, you talk to many people, is like, why do we have conflict? They say because we're, especially with married people, newlyweds or 20 years after marriage, there's some conflicts in the marriage. It could be between the parents, it could be between a parent and a child, or it could be between children. And when you ask what's causing that conflict, they say it's incompatible. We're incompatible. We're not compatible. And that's really obvious. I mean, none of us is compatible to one another. We're all incompatible with one another. And therefore, having that conflict is a natural thing if you are incompatible. So don't think that if a person is, leaving whatever they have, leaving home, for example, and going finding another home, he or she will not have conflicts. They're dreaming. They're living in an imaginary world. They're not being realistic. So therefore, conflicts happen, and that's it's just like breathing. It happens. We don't control it. It just happens. So the idea here is that by resolving conflict, we become compatible. So we work together. If I have a conflict with you, we work together to be compatible, to be less incompatible. So, and the Prophet ﷺ tells us about the incompatibility when it comes down to marriage. When the Prophet ﷺ said, if a person from within a tribe to marry from another tribe is better than to marry within the tribe. So going outside the tribe or going outside of Arabia, to marry outside of your culture or of your social circle that you have, it's better for the marriage. And that's the diverse of the marriage. The Prophet ﷺ, one of the things that he taught us is the more diverse the marriage is, the stronger and bigger it can become. So the potential for growth is quite higher for the marriage. And the Prophet ﷺ married a few wives. He had, and he was able to make reconciliation with so many tribes, and his family became a huge family because of the marrying outside Quraysh. And there are some internal causes of conflicts. So these are conflicts within us, within each one of us. These are conflicts between pride and dignity. I defined both the differences between them. You can take a look at the earlier talk. It's on the channel. There is an internal struggle between struggle and peace, jealousy and contentment, egocentric and benevolent. I spoke about all of these, so please review the details of that. So many times in many situations in a conflict, people take the passive approach. I don't want to make a big deal. I'll just be patient now for a greater future, for a bigger chance to grow in the future, and they keep on which one is more common, do you think, from yourself, within the family, within the society, however you want to look at it? Which one is more likely for a person to say, I must not make a big deal? Or a person would take that conflict, in the middle of the conflict, if the conflict happens, the other person like, let's not make a big deal. Let's just let it go. It's okay. And the other option is that I want a stronger foundation to grow on later. So I want this conflict to help me grow later. So which one do you think is more common? First one or second one? First. Anybody say second? Which one? How can we balance between the first and second? Can we do some of the first and a lot more of the second? Like, can we do like 10% of the times when we have a conflict, let's say, let's not make a big deal, and 90% of the conflicts that we have, let's take this an opportunity to reconcile and build a foundation for future? Which one do you think? Is it like 10 90, 20 80, 30 70, 40 60, 50 50? What do you think? Or is it 0 100? Can we do one in any circumstance? Is there any circumstance that you can think of that we would say, yes, it's better not to make a big deal? Just bite the bullet, just let it go. Let it go. So there's sometimes it's valid, right? Yeah. So I'm seeing heads nodding. Yes, it's valid. And so many people think that way. But here's what I would like you to change that perception. Think of, so here is the thing. The concept here is that when we're, let me see if I can get, yeah, when we're focusing on this, on number one, I must not make a big deal, then I'm satisfied now. I'm just like, yeah, I'm happy now. But in the future, it might exaggerate. It might get bigger, it might get worse, and 2 or 3 years down the road, you still remember, 3 years ago, remember, you did this, you did that, you did this, and I was quiet, I kept it in, but now you're doing, so to bring in the past 3 years ago, how is the other person going to remember? You remember it more vividly because it was to you, you chose, and you kind of like emotionally suppressed, and it's easy maybe to remember it, but for the other person doesn't even know that he did that or she did that. So that's considered a quick way to gratify yourself and be happy in the moment, but later on it's going to be troublesome. It's going to be, it's very likely to be blown out of proportion, or be blown for a bigger conflict in the future. But if we were to deal with this, so this is number 2, I want a stronger foundation to grow on later. So this is what I want to focus on and resolve this conflict for a stronger bond, for a stronger relationship with this person, whomever that person is, even if it's your grandfather, even if it's your great-grandmother. You want to use that conflict to strengthen that bond with that person, even if it's your neighbor that you don't like, whatever the case might be. You need, that's the idea. You're thinking of it, I'm going to take the pain now and work with this conflict, try to resolve it, try to continue talking to the person, even though he doesn't deserve my time. I know he doesn't deserve my time, but I need to work hard. It's not an easy thing. I'm not really liking it. But your thinking in the future is going to be a peaceful relationship. And that's why the second one has a different point of view to look at. So therefore, so the majority will go with number 1, as mentioned, as was given feedback. And very little people would consider the second one. Actually, what we should, the percentage that we need to break down between the two is that we need to focus on the second one 100%. We need to take, again, every conflict as an opportunity to reconcile. Reconciling is the answer. Avoidance is not an answer. Avoiding the situation, avoiding the conflict, not talking about it is not an option. That's very, very important in our happiness in the relationships that we have, whether it's that we have social circles. A very, very tight social circle is the first one. Is what the first social circle is what? Guess. You. That's the first circle. That's who you are. The bigger one, your parents, your family, siblings, and then relatives, neighbors, society, country, world, right? So the tighter to the small circle, which is you, the more focus you want to make sure these conflicts are resolved, because they are impacting your life, the most, right? So therefore, take every conflict opportunity, a possibility, every conflict situation as an opportunity to reconcile. And we need not to shy away from reconciling. Now, we need to figure out how we reconcile effectively, and that's really important. So when we have conflicts, you need to understand one thing. Because we want to resolve conflicts, we need to know what are we resolving. Many people think of when it comes to conflict, it's about the issue. You're not resolving issues. You are actually dealing with feelings. And the feelings are the ones that are blocking each person from talking. Feelings are very, very strong. We don't feel them with our hands, but we feel them with our body. We feel them with our heart, So these conflicts come from feelings. I feel hurt, right? So then I respond to how you made me feel. I get upset, then there's a conflict. When I feel angry, we act out of anger. So the conflicts can cause anger. I feel unheard. Nobody's hearing me. So there's a conflict. So when the child feels that they're not being heard, their behavior changes. They overact. They want attention, but the way they express it, they don't know how to express it. They don't say, as a parent, you never taught them how to express their need to be heard. So therefore, they're doing their natural way. They're just trying to figure out. So they overact. They beat their siblings. They break the neighbor's car. They want attention. That's a conflict now you have with a child. Now you can beat the heck out of the child, so he would listen to you. He would not listen to you. He'll be scared of you, but he will not listen to you because he's going to do it behind your back. But there's a conflict between you and your child. Either you sit down and talk to the child and listen about the feelings. What's causing him to do all that? He's not a bad child. Children are not born bad. Same thing for adults. We're not born bad. It's just the feelings that make us act bad. When we don't know how to deal with the feeling, we act bad. So remember, when you're dealing with a conflict, you're actually dealing with feelings. So here is the cycle of hurt. I'm going to go through it really quickly. So I'm hurt. My feelings, I feel something bad. You caused me to feel something bad. Then, therefore, I hurt you. And then you say, oh, you hurt me. Well, I'm going to hurt you back. And then I say, oh, you're hurting me back. Well, I'm going to hurt you even more. And that cycle will continue on and on and on. Hurt, I'm going to hurt you. You hurt me, I hurt you more. It's going to continue unless we stop it. Unless we take control of this conflict and stop it. So at this point, there's a conflict. So when I'm hurt, it's inside, it's internal. You don't know I'm hurt. When I start hurting you, you need to know that there is a conflict. Don't go back and hurt the other person. Stop. Tell the other person, let's talk. What's causing you to do this to me? When I, heard you say these things, I felt this way. What's going on? Talk. But it's easy to really go back and hurt the other person back. Right? Can you imagine in a car accident somebody hit you? You go hit them back. It doesn't happen like that. I mean, it hardly ever happened. But somehow, in our relationship with with human in interactions, when somebody hurts us, we hurt them back. Right? It's becoming the expected. So if somebody is hurt, what do they need? They need your love. Absolutely. Thank you, sis. Jazakallah khairan. And that's exactly. And why do we not give them love? Because we believe that they don't deserve it because they hurt us. So remember this rule. So I said a rule earlier. This is another rule. The rule here says, those who need the love the most, they deserve it the least. They deserve it the least. You think that they deserve it the least. But actually they need it the most. You're angry at them because you hurt them. But at that point, they need love. They don't need you to talk about defending yourself there. It's a bit difficult to understand and to make it. But it's really, really important for us to understand it. It's maybe not a conventional way to look at things. But that's why we're here. That's why we talk about these things. It's like you need to remember. When you want to give love the least to your child because he broke the neighbor's car, because he vandalized the whole neighborhood, you don't want to give him love because he deserves what? Punishment. Exactly. It's like I echoed the whole room. Exactly. He deserves punishment. But actually he needs help. He needs love. That's what he needs the most. Even though you think that he doesn't deserve it, but that's what he needs. He needs love. So therefore, this is the rule. Is very, very important for us to implement it when it comes down to conflicts. Don't give love because when people deserve it. Be aware of when do they need it, right? And it's not that they need to deserve your love. Like when a baby child, does he deserve the love when he was crying? Baby, like newborn, he deserves the love. You're asleep, you're tired, you just gave birth for the woman, and the father has been sitting next to the mom. He deserves the love. You think he deserves it, but when he's like 5 years old and crying, it's like, just go to bed. We're all tired. How about 10 years old? How about 18 years old? Can we just not talk about it tomorrow? Can you not just be respectful that we need to we had a very long day, we need to rest? But actually they need the most of love. They need it on that time, at that spot. If you were to hug them, or if you were to show them some compassion and that you're there for them, it will make wonders. It will make miracles. So these are the quick review of the causes of hurt: feeling not being heard, feeling pushed aside, feeling violated, feeling of humiliation, degradation, the dignity is being under attack. And I spoke about the differences between pride and dignity. Dignity we need to nourish. Dignity we need to nourish, and pride we need to suppress. We need to have less pride. We need to have more dignity. Why people don't confront conflict is because of fear. They're scared. There's fear that is blocking them. Again, emotion that is blocking the conflict resolution. So fear, I would like you to remember what fear stands for. I should put it in capital letters. Fear is false evidence appear real. Fear stands for false evidence appear real. Meaning that we fear something that is not real. We're fearing of something, in most of the cases, that is not real. Because when it comes down to conflicts, and I'm talking here about conflicts, okay? When it comes down to conflicts, when we try to resolve conflicts and fear comes in, we are fearing things that are not real. It's only in our head. It's only in our mind. It's only in ourselves and our perceptions, how we see things. What do we fear most? Well, I know for men, I would guess, I wouldn't know for sure all men, but some men, they would fear the words, the 4 words, we need to talk. When the wife says we need to talk, many brothers, they kind of almost have a heart attack. Like, uh-oh, what did I do? So they know that there's some issues that they need to talk. But that's the fear that is not something that we need to suppress. We need to work with and encourage to remove that fear so we can resolve and talk. So what do we fear? We fear that we are misunderstood. We fear that, oh, you didn't understand me. We continue to explain. We continue to explain. We fear that whatever I say is used against me. Right? It's like, oh no, I'm not going to give him that power. I'm going to keep that to myself. I'm not going to let him know that. He's going to use it against me. We fear rejection. And we fear pride attack. And we said we want to do less of pride, more of dignity. So the fear makes us insecure, and the more insecure people are, the more controlling they want to be or they become. The more insecure, the more controlling. If you have a controlling person that you know in your life, reach out to them, give him love. Give him love because they feel insecure. Give them security. They want security. They're not feeling secure with you or in their lives or whatever the case might be. And that's what's causing to be control, because they cannot trust the environment around them, so they feel like they need to be in control in everything they do. Why resolving conflicts important for us? Why not just give the silence treatment and let time heal? I heard about that. You see, if time heals, then doctors wouldn't need to be in the clinic. They just have a waiting room, and they don't need to be in the clinic. Just go waiting in the waiting room. The pain will go away, right? And then, Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. The pain will go away just waiting in the waiting room, if that's true. Because time doesn't heal. You need to do something. You need to make that first step to resolve the conflict. So why resolving conflict is important? The Prophet ﷺ tells us that the gates of paradise open on Mondays and Thursdays. Right? We fast Mondays and Thursdays. Many of us do. And it's a good habit. And everyone who does not associate anything with Allah is forgiving, except a man who has had an argument with his brother. And many of us think that this is about a man and a friend, or a lady with a friend, but they forget about the man and the wife, the husband and wife, the husband and child, the child and the father, the child and the mother, the daughter with the mother. These are also included in this hadith. So if there is a argument between two people, just to make it general, between two people, then it's said, wait for those two until they reconcile. So your good deeds will not go to the heavens on Mondays and Thursdays until you reconcile. If you have a conflict with anyone in your life, please do that after you leave here. Try to have a plan to, well, first, because I'm not going to cover all the the steps today. Inshallah, future talks I will cover it. But at least now you need to kind of like look at who you need to reconcile with. Identify the people that you want to reach out to and reconcile. Because the actions are not risen to paradise. So it's been blocked because of the conflict that we have. So therefore we need to reconcile. So reconciling is what? Conflict is what? Conflict. When somebody says, what is conflict? You say? I'm sorry? Opportunity to reconcile. So what is conflict? Everybody, what is conflict? What is conflict? I can't. Some people are still like not. What? One last time. What is conflict? Very good. Jazakumullah khair. So there's a huge reward for reconciliation, and we said that it's better than prayers, fasting, and charity. And now we have another hadith that is telling us our good actions, our good deeds will not go to the heavens on Mondays, on Thursdays, if we have a conflict with a person. That person, start with the smaller circle. If all of the people that are in a smaller circle around you, I mean, if you have conflicts within yourself, you need to make yourself happy. You need to remove the conflicts within yourself. And then you need to work on the second circle, your family. And then go circle by circle. Don't do it all at once. It's not going to be feasible. So to resolve conflicts, or the reason why we resolve conflicts, because we need what? What do we need in our hearts? I'm sorry? Peace. Absolutely. You attended the last session, I guess. No. Well, I didn't cover this one in the last session, actually. This is all new. This is now the new. I think this is the new material. So we need that peace. We need that feel of satisfaction, happiness in our hearts, right? And we do have the right to be happy, right? I gave a talk on that as well. Many scholars give talks about happiness and our rights as Muslims and as human beings to have that right to be happy. So we need to resolve these conflicts because we want peace in our hearts. And for our external life, what do we need? Relationships. And relationships can be flourished with forgiveness. Forgiveness is very important for our external life, for our interactions with the people. Now, when you resolve conflicts, it's really important to understand forgiveness. I gave an example last talk I did on this. The example is that I stepped on a person accidentally, on a person's foot or a toe. I have, assuming that I have heels, very heavy heels, and I stepped on his toe, almost broke it. And then he started yelling and screaming at me. That's the example I used last time. And he started yelling and screaming at me, and he made made me feel embarrassed. He embarrassed me in front of him. So that's the example. So then I looked at him and I said, I forgive you. Did I resolve the conflict? Based on what you guys heard right now. Did I resolve the conflict? The fact that I told him I forgive him. I forgave him. Why wouldn't I? Why is it not resolving the conflict? I'm sorry? Okay. And he was yelling at me and screaming at me, and I said, I forgive you. I don't, it's okay. You made me feel bad. You cursed me and you embarrassed me, but I forgive you. It's still not resolved. Why not? I need to apologize. Okay. It hasn't been resolved. I agree. Okay. The conflict hasn't been resolved because I haven't addressed his feeling. I hurt him physically. This one was physically, right? I did not address that. And the fact that I did not address it, there's a conflict. So we don't want to give forgiveness when we don't understand what's going on. We need to understand. We need to go through this journey of understanding the conflict and what happened, and just, go through it. It's painful. It's not, to some people it's not painful, it's just hard. It's difficult, it's challenging. To others might be painful. It depends on how far how long the conflicts have been lasting. So when we forgive, we need to make sure that we have this forgiving understood. We all understand what this forgiveness is about. And that's part of the reconciliation. That's closure. That's 100% closure for the conflict. And that would, happiness, as I mentioned earlier. Okay, so we talked about time doesn't heal everything. So that's not... So how do we solve conflicts? How do we solve conflicts? I'm sorry? Communications. Very good. More ideas. Is there a microphone, brother? 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 I'm sorry? The cause of the conflict? Brother? Excuse me. Sorry. Is there a microphone that's not working? Yeah, can we give it to the sisters, please? Jazakallah khairan. To the sisters back in the back.
You must understand the cause of the conflict.
Understanding. So communication, understanding the conflict. That's very good. Number 3, anybody can? Please. Thoughts. Don't let the fear block what you want to say. Sharing is caring. Anybody? You don't have to have the microphone if that makes you feel anxious.
Sharing is actually already said. No, it's okay. Discussion.
So can it be resolved by itself? We agreed on that it does not. You need to do something. So I heard confront it. I heard understand it, and I heard communication, and that's really what it's all about, is confronting it. You need to do something about it to confront it. Whether you just need to make that first step to confront the conflict. It's not going to disappear. You need to address it step by step. So confronting it is not really like negatively confront it. Confront it is really stand up for it. Don't shy away from it. You need to resort to many skills: communication, understanding, listening. It's very, very important skills that we need to have in resolving the conflict. Listen first and talk second. Talk later. You don't have to be the first one to talk. But if you were the first one to bring it up, and you should be the first one to initiate the conflict resolution, because you get the rewards, because you're starting it, right? So if you're starting it, then you need to admit your faults. Even if the other person you think is 100% at fault, you need to think of something that you did wrong, even if it's like 0.1%. That that's that 0.1% contributed to the conflict, if that's what you think, then start with that. Because that's going to remove the fear from the other person. Remove the defenseness of the other person. Just admit that you made a mistake. Small, tiny little mistake. Even if you think that has nothing to do with how the big, how big the conflict became. That opens up the communication. Because you cannot communicate with someone who's giving you like the hands, like don't talk to me. You're trying to communicate, but he's not listening. So they're shut down. And you cannot seek understanding if they're shut down. But then you need to confront the conflict as a whole. So the first step to reconcile. So these are, so I want to go through the steps to reconcile. I'll probably be able to cover one today, inshallah. So the principle, when it comes down to resolving conflicts, it goes between constructive and destructive. So when you confront it, you can confront it in a constructive manner, or you can confront it in a destructive manner. And then you can be passive in a constructive manner, or you can be passive in a destructive manner. So confronting or being passive, either confrontive or passive, or constructive and destructive. So if we were the confrontive here, and this is the constructive, we need to be confronting it constructively. That's where we need to be. High confrontive, high constructive. Why? Because we want to confront it in a very positive way in order for it to be constructive. Constructive means positive. Is actually going to give us positive result in a constructive manner. And we need to confront it. We cannot be passive and expect it to be constructive, because if we didn't do anything, it's not going to resolve itself. So if you're low confrontive, you're passive, right? And if you're low constructive, you're destructive, right? So is that clear in the graph? Make sense? So if you are low constructive and high confrontive, the person is destructive and confronting it, so he's confronting it in a very negative way. They're aggressive, they're in your face. They might win, but they will lose the other person. If you were to be aggressive with the person you have a conflict with, you will win the argument, but you will lose the other person. You will lose the relationship. It's one option that one would do. Passive and destructive. You avoid the problem, wants to be left alone. You lose and the other person lose. So you're not satisfying yourself, you're taking it in, you're not feeling good about it, you're just taking time to resolve, and sometimes takes years to overcome some conflicts. So you're not satisfied and the other person is not satisfied, so you lose the relationship as well. So if you're highly constructive but passive, you're supportive, it's okay, these things happen. He's my father, he's my grandfather. It's okay, I don't need to, address this conflict with the person. He's my great uncle, he's my older neighbor, he's my husband, she's my wife. It's okay. The likelihood that you'll be taken advantage of. If you keep doing this for years, at an older age, we're all human. You will just say, until when? Until when will I be able, continue to do this? So for the long term, it's not good for you. So that's why we need to be constructive and positive, confronted in a very positive manner. So we need to be supportive and we need to be confronting. So this one, so for this one, when you're passive and you're constructive, you're supportive, it's okay. He yelled at me, he beat me up, it's okay. Could be your classmate in school, and you didn't stand up for yourself, and you didn't confront it, right? It'll take, a piece out of your, who you are later on as it grows, and the more people you do that to, the less likely that you would have the ability to stand up for the conflicts. So then you lose yourself, but you win the other person's relationship or their happiness. They're happy because you're passive, but you're inside, you're not happy. So far everybody understands? Anybody has any questions on this so far? It's all clear? Okay. Now the last one is highly constructive and highly confrontive. You solve problems and you build relationship. That's what you need to do. That's what we need to do. We need to solve problems and build relationships, because conflicts come from problems. We need to resolve it. Giving support and say it's okay, it's qadar, it's my qadar, I hear that a lot. It's my qadar. Well, it's your qadar also to say something about it. It's your qadar to talk about it, to reach out for help. Avoiding the problem, it's like, yeah, I'll just not have to worry about it. Just block it. And that's not a solution. So we need to solve the problems. We need to solve problems and build relationship. That's where it comes win to win. Now that process is not, as I mentioned, many people don't take this option because it's difficult. It's not impossible. This is much easier. It's like, just avoid it. I don't want to talk about it. Just don't open that topic in front of me. I cannot handle it. Don't even bring that event happened last Eid or whatever the case might be. And it happens around holidays and on special days. And it's good memories, but they try to avoid the conflicts that happen in good memories so they can focus on the positive memory. But if they were to resolve the conflict, the whole environment or the whole situation would be positive, and it will be something that they feel comfortable talking about. So being aggressive is a harsh method. It's being harsh. You're being a harsh person if you were to do high constructive and destructive. If you're passive and destructive, it's because of fear. So that's what fear causes. When we are afraid of the conflict, expect destruction in the relationship today or a year from now or 10 years from now. Expect that. It's going to happen because you didn't address it positively and you were passive about that. And then if you were to be focusing on the positive outcome but not confronting it, expect that you are passive and you will suffer through the process. Emotionally you will suffer. Today, tomorrow, a year, 10 years, it will catch up on you. Unless you're Superwoman, Superman. Then that's a different story. I don't know if they exist. Do they exist? I don't think they exist. But that's a different opinion on that. So the way to do it is constructively confronting conflicts. Constructively confronting conflicts. So I kind of liked some of the work that was done in this kind of things, and they associate these personalities to animals. I mean, we're much higher than the animals, don't get me wrong, we're much higher than those, but it gives us a picture. It helps us, using the image, for that personality. Sometimes it helps us understand what I just spoke about for the last hour much faster. So when you're harsh, when you're aggressive, highly constructive, very destructive, you're like a Wolverine. A wolverine is what? Is a nice animal? It's a harsh animal. And not only that, it stinks. It doesn't smell good. Even it's being around, not doing any aggressive things, the people around, or the animals around it, they try to avoid it. So that's the person who's aggressive. The more aggressive the person is, the people around him are like scared of him. Even though he's not doing it, but he's stinking the environment. He's making it very tense. That's the personality I chose for a wolverine. For those who avoid the problems, think of turtles. And we have lambs. It's okay. You want me to go this way? I'll go this way. You want me to go this way? I'll go this way. And the lambs are very, passive in that sense. And and they are humans. And we are the humans who resolve problems. That's what really unique about human. We resolve problems. I've never seen, like, you watch National Geography, right? Never seen two lions talk. You never see, a lion talking to the rabbit, or a wolf talking to a rabbit, like, I'm gonna eat you now. It's like, is that okay with you? It's like, no, it's not okay. Oh, okay, if that's not what okay, I'll just find me something else to eat. They don't talk. They don't resolve problems. Like, you don't see rabbits sitting together. It's like the wolves are eating us, guys, every day. Let's find something to fix that problem. They don't talk. They don't have that ability to resolve problems. We do, but we hardly use that skill or with that gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us. So we need to resolve problems. So step number 1. So this is where it says number 1 here. This is number 1. Step number 1, to resolve conflicts. Ask Allah for help. You need to ask Allah for guidance, wisdom, steadfastness. As I said, this is not going to be an easy walk in the park. It can be a walk in the park, but at the beginning the walk is going to be rough. It's not going to be paved road. You and the other person that you have a conflict with, you need to pave the road together. It's not on you, it's not on them. Because in conflict it comes like, oh, I feel hurt, then you need to fix it. You did this to me, you need to undo it. And that's very common in conflicts. When we have conflicts with the other person, it's like, well, that's what they did. Well, then I'm going to just ignore them unless they fix it. Well, how do you know that they know that? How do you know that they knew or know that they hurt you? They don't even know. Like that example I gave, when I stepped on the person behind me, and the person stepped on his toe that he's behind me, I didn't even feel it. That was my example. I didn't feel that I stepped on his toe because my shoes were like heavy. I couldn't feel it, and he was barefooted, so I didn't feel it. So I hurt him without me knowing. So if he's hurt, he needs to let me know. And this is where the key is. When he comes and goes at me and being very emotionally expressive, I must address the conflict, not the emotion, not how he makes me feel. We need to stop it there. Don't address the feelings inside you in response, because you're going to go back and hurt him back. It's like, oh, I hurt your toe, let me hurt your nose too, and you can, and you would punch him in the face maybe. But that's where we need to control what is the other person is expressing to us, how they felt about what we did. So therefore, it's not an easy process, but it is something that we need to seek help. And the best of whom we can seek help from is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He gives us guidance, He gives us wisdom, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give you guidance in many different ways. Don't think you're going to see it in a dream. It's like, oh, I didn't see a dream, then therefore I'm not going to address it in the conflict. But He can have someone maybe from the family to visit you, and it's like, maybe that person has the wisdom, maybe that person has the guidance. You just need to be always on a lookout, mindful of the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you ask for help, you need to be mindful. Look for the possible signs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is helping you in your conflict. I need to ask for Allah's wisdom, or Allah to give you wisdom in this conflict, to resolve the conflict, not to be passive, not to be aggressive, and for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you steadfastness in to the truth. Because when it comes to conflict, sometimes we see the conflicts become arguments, and it's a matter as who is going to prove their argument to be accurate. And many people tend to go out of the truth to prove them right. And they make up things, and they start to become very creative, and creativity helps them win the argument, but actually they lost themselves. They lost themselves. So therefore we need to seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us steadfastness to the truth. That's very, very important in conflict resolution. And at the same time, as you seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seek help from the people around you. See who can help you the best. Again, you need to be looking for someone who helps you resolve the problem, not to encourage you to be passive. If a person encourages you to be passive, say, Jazakallah khair, keep looking, because you want someone to help you resolve the conflict. Not accept it. I mean, you're accepting it anyway, but you're trying to resolve it so it doesn't happen again, so the relation still is tight. And you get the rewards by resolving that conflict. Reconciliation is very important in our lives. So when you get all this, you will, when you are asking for all of this, you're really asking for the most important thing that you need to overcome your fears. Remember, the fears is what's causing us not to move forward to resolve the conflict. So what do we need the most? When we ask for Allah's guidance, His wisdom, His steadfastness to the truth, and we ask people to help us resolve the problem, what do we need the most to overcome the fear? Patience. Very good. What else? Just for the record, the sisters have been really more engaged than the brothers, just for the record. Brothers, what do we need to overcome the fears? I'm sorry? Forgiving the person, okay? Brothers, what do we need? If you have a fear, what is it that you need to overcome that fear? So the fear we talked about, what's keeping us from taking the steps to move forward in resolving the conflict is fear. Fear of misunderstanding, fear of the person using that what you tell them against you, right? I'm sorry? Positive thinking, okay? So I heard positive thinking, I heard forgiving, I heard, what was the first one? Patience. What do we need for all of these in order for us to have these three? Because there's a requirement before that. To make the first step, we need courage. To overcome the fear, we need courage. If you have the courage, you will address the fears. Some people say, I'm courageous, that's why I'm letting it go. That's not courageous. You're not being courageous. Courageous is you address the problem positively, constructively, in a humanly manner, and get to a resolution. So therefore, when we seek the help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the help from the people around us, it'll give us courage. It'll give us courage to overcome the fear. Because that's the support that we need in order for us to go with this rocky road. In the beginning is going to be rocky. A little bit later is going to be, less rocky, more paved. Then it's going to be very nicely paved. And then there's going to be greenery on both sides. And then the flowers will start to come and bloom. So it's a process. In the beginning it's going to be very difficult. If your car's stuck in the mud, what would you wish to have at that point? Someone to pull you, right? Someone to pull you. And that's what you're asking for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you and to pull you through this mud, this stucky, rocky, difficult, harsh road that you're going to go through with this conflict with that person. So I'm going to stop here, inshallah, and see if there's any questions or comments from everybody. More than happy to address it. Any questions or comments? Yes, sister. You have the microphone, right?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
Walaikum assalam wa
wabarakatuh.
rahmatullahi wa
Just wondering whether if it is about your own internal conflict, is it the same steps? And yeah, would it be the same steps to resolve it?
Internal conflicts. The same steps. Well, the first step is the same. The first step is the same. So I'm trying to find that internal. I guess I missed that. Or maybe it's here. Yeah, the first step is definitely the same. That's a very good question. So this is one of the, or like I picked 4 of the internal conflicts, but there are a lot more conflicts that we go through than what I just put here. In order to resolve internal conflicts, then the second step is the same. You know what I'll do? You give me a very good idea. What I'll do, I will adjust my slides, and I will say for internal conflicts, if they differ from external, I will highlight that. But I know for sure that the first few, they're pretty much the same. But I will take another look at that. That's a very good feedback. Jazakallah khair. So if you are addressing an internal conflict, okay, so I'm looking at all of them. In general, yes, but the specifics are not. So I will highlight in the slides, I'll bring in the internal conflicts on how we address the internal conflicts. Yes?
Regards to the fear for an internal conflict, because you're dealing with yourself. So how would we address fear, would that be about fear or... Because
could be fear, it could be pride, could be denial. It depends. It depends. You need to understand what is blocking you from addressing the conflicts inside you. Because sometimes when we address conflicts inside us, in our mind, we fear to disrespect other people. Because in our resolution internally, we would need to address how other people impacted us. And in our mind, we need to kind of address that. And fear of disrespecting these people in our mind can block us from addressing these conflicts inside us. But that would also require some preparation, because as I mentioned earlier, the general steps, because there's preparation in the conflicts, whether external or internal, but the steps you would take for internal preparation is different than external preparation. But there has to be some kind of preparations that you need to do, prepare yourself and make yourself comfortable through that process within yourself. You don't want to start and in the beginning and then before you even get deeper you feel uncomfortable and you stop. But it's a process also to fix that as well, inshallah. Very good comment and question. Jazakallah khair. Yes, please.
Assalamualaikum. Could I just ask, so this is sort of focusing more on internal sort of a thing. I would just kind of like to ask on more external bits. So obviously conflicts and whatnot, it depends on relationships. And I think in a very anecdotal manner, it would actually require, relationships are a constantly two-way street. So in regards to that, an individual can only respond to what another person gives. So once you've prepared, per se, for example, to engage and resolve conflicts, but the other person does not want to engage with you. So what happens then? You meet a dead end? So I mean, like obviously you've tried, and referring to the graph itself, you would aim to go for the high confrontation and high constructivism itself, but you know that requires a two-way street if the person's willing to cooperate with you, and not everyone's willing to cooperate, I suppose.
Yep.
I mean, and it's faulty on our part, isn't it, to expect the person to be as understanding of the situation and manner and as cooperative. So I would just kind of like to ask a bit on that.
Yep.
Thank you.
So, Jazakallah khair, very good question. So if I may take this, where did it go? Go into that slide that had the quadrants, this one. So let's say a harsh spouse married to a passive spouse, and the passive spouse realized that she needs to be constructively confronted. She wants to deal with the harsh spouse. Is that maybe an example of what you're saying? So how do we get this harsh person get to talk, right? He's saying, no, it's my way, you're wrong, you did this, you have to do this, and he's very aggressive in what he's expecting or she's expecting, and you just need to do it his or her way, because they come from a different generation, they come from a different gender, they come from a different culture, right? All these things to them, to the other person, is justified to be aggressive, to be not talking to you, and it's your fault. But you're thinking, I want to resolve this problem. And you're saying that it takes two from the conversation, or for the resolve to happen, for the resolution to happen. And then the other person is refusing because he or she sees it's your fault. And you're the one who needs to fix it. That's the situation you're asking about, right? Yeah. So what do you think is blocking them from talking? So here's, just to make it easier so we don't make it very long to everybody. So what blocks us from coming and talking and addressing these conflicts, what's blocking the other person, I can assure you, it's either because their emotions or their beliefs. They believe that they were wrong. They believe that you were wrong, and therefore they don't need to fix it. It's your fault. You need to fix it. I don't have anything to do. That's a belief. So they either have that belief, they believe that they are right and you're wrong, or they're emotionally hurt, they're insecure, they feel angry, they don't want to upset any further, they don't want to cause any more trouble, and therefore they don't want to resolve. They don't see any, or maybe they are in the fear quadrant. They just like, don't make a big deal out of it. I forgive you, let's move on. But you're thinking, we need to resolve this. We didn't talk about it. It's really good to talk about it. The more you explain why you need to do it, the more likely he will not or she will not come to you and talk to you about it. As I mentioned earlier, you need to address what's blocking the other person. It depends. And that's a different session, to be honest, because there's a lot to talk about. But I'll give you really quick hints. First, you need to understand what is blocking that person. It could be pride. It could be it's just the culture. My father always got away with what he wants, or my mother she was always right, and therefore I'm always right. I'm doing it exactly how my mother did it, or how my father did it. Then therefore I'm right, my father is right, and you're wrong. But if in their mind they think if they're wrong, then their parents are wrong, or whatever they saw is the right person, in their mind, whatever the ideal person was, then it shakes that vision for them, and that's very, very dangerous to get into. You don't want to walk with that person and shake the ideal person that they've always grew up to think that person is Mr. Right or Mrs. Right, and you tell him you're wrong, but he's in their mind, he's thinking or she's thinking, I'm doing it exactly how they taught me. If I'm wrong, then they are also wrong, and that's my ideal person, then therefore I'm nothing. That to them is very, very protected. So you're trying to shake that, they will always push you back. So you need to be aware of what the other person is going through. That's very important. That's number one. You need to remove that belief or that thought or that fear or that emotion that they have. You need to remove it, because that's blocking you or blocking the other person to come and talk to you and resolve the issue with you. So again, it is a different process that would need to be taken. In this process is that when so this process is effective when you cause someone to be hurt, and or when someone comes to you and express harsh feelings or harsh behavior, you need to address that by first, as I mentioned earlier, admitting something that you did wrong. They will open up. So you can, yes, what's the question there, sister? Think of that 0.001% chance that you've done something wrong, because you need to open that person. You need to have them open. Mm. Well, do you want to keep that relationship or not? Do you want to have a happy relationship with that person or not? Okay, so there's also something that we need to work on ourselves. Sometimes we assume, it's their thing, it's their habit, but we don't know. It could be that something that she's very sensitive to many things, that we think it's her habit, but it's actually not her habit. She's expecting certain things, and her habit is to get upset when she doesn't get things a certain way. So for that, for example, you haven't done anything wrong. For example, can you give me an example for that? Or is that too private? It's okay if you don't want. Yeah. Sure, appreciate it.
For example, I received something so close. So she's supposed to come to my feet. So I peel off and get ready everything, and then put it waiting for her to come and pick up. She enters and she gave me something and I gave it. And she just jumped and said, "My needs are there to clean my," jumping and saying that I'm wrong, but I meant good to clean up and do stuff and everything for her. So naturally I get hurt. But she told me that take what she already said to me. This is just happened about 3 weeks ago.
Mm.
Many incidents. And sometimes I know whether I should
Right.
tell her or what.
Yeah.
Please advise me.
Yeah. So when I say that, that's a very good point, very good example. And when I said like 0.001% chance that you are at fault, think of it from their perspective. Think of it from their perspective. From your perspective, you didn't do anything right. You didn't do anything wrong, I meant, right? You didn't do anything wrong. But from their perspective, you did something wrong. And that's what caused them to behave. Remember, the example I gave, I stepped on the person behind me, and I didn't know. I didn't do anything wrong. I wasn't aware. Unless he tells me. If she's not telling you, if the person is not telling you what you did wrong, then you wouldn't know. Then you need to ask, what is causing, you upset with me? But it sounds like she did express, there's some expectations that she was expecting, you didn't do it to her expectations. That's when you can say, from her point of view, that is your fault. From her point of view. Because you want to have that person to open up. You need to agree with their perception first. Because you have a train going south at 400 kilometers per hour speed, right? You don't want them to go, and you're going north. You're like, north is the right way to do it. North is always up, right? So you want to go north. And that train is going south. How do you get that train to go north? It's not going to be possible. You have to go south a little bit. You have to go south. From 400, speed of 400 kilometers per hour, you need to reduce it to 300, to 200, to 100, to 50, and then stop it. Then you need to turn that train around, and then you accelerate. So you have a person you're seeing things in a different way that you do. You want them to go this way, and they're going this way. It's like, no, you need to go this way. Then there's the conflict. She's pushing you this way, and you're pushing her that way. So what I'm saying is that when you admit it from their perspective. Yeah, I did something wrong. So you're going together. But you're talking to her now. You're going south, you're going one direction together. There is no conflict. There's no conflict, there is no confrontation that is negative. You're confronting it, but together. So you're going, I was like, yes, I may have didn't see that. You can say, oh, I didn't think of that. I'm sorry. What do I need to do next? What would be different that I need to do? She would tell you what you needed to do differently. And then you'd say, oh, but from my side, I was thinking this way. I was thinking if I did it this way, I want to get rewards. You see, she heard you. You're going together. Now you're slowing her down. She's not as aggressive as it was. And little by little, you'll be able to take her north. She sees it from your perspective. So that's the process that you need to work on. So when you admit it, don't make up things. Admit it from their perspective. Because you want to work in that relationship. What do you think of that?
Okay, the next time, she said, the next time I say something that you're not ready to tell me. But the next time she behaves the same.
Yeah.
So, sometimes I say, you told me not to. You need to tell me that you shouldn't be so hard towards me. Sorry. But another time, it just got heavy and then, how do I cannot, I was looking at all this, I can't help that she's like that, I have to accept it. Is it good that I accept all the time?
Is the person in their strong mental ability? Their strong mental ability. They don't have any forgetfulness. They don't have any. They're not forgetting a lot. Their memory is strong. Is it that person? Okay, so their memory should be strong. Yeah. So. She's not. People can be young also, but they're forgetful because of accident, because of birth, because of a lot of things. But they don't have any mental weaknesses in a sense that physical, that is not memory related or is not cognitive related. So they are mentally normal and strong. But it really depends. So if you were to use this example that I just mentioned, like you admit, you go like what I said earlier, you admit that you didn't know it and what could I've done differently, and understanding it from her perspective, and then you can explain it from your perspective to be the norm in that relationship. Would that make it troublesome for you? Would it? Yeah.
So, I don't know what to do anymore. That's what I come today, because I see the title is so.
Yeah, the difficult part on my side is that I need to know the specifics of the situations, and I cannot really get more specifics. This session is recorded and all that, so we don't want to get more specifics. I'm more than happy to talk to you, not after the session because I have a commitment after the session, but I can give you my number and then maybe you can have a little chat, and I will try to address the specifics of that situation, because it's really important for you to understand. one thing that I just noticed is that there's something is blocking you from, or something that is, you don't feel comfortable reaching out or, you know, fixing that problem, or so then we talk more about that, inshallah. So that's a specific situation, inshallah we can talk more about that. And that's so going back to the sister's question in terms of if the other person doesn't want to resolve the conflict, is that it's our opportunity to open up. And as I mentioned earlier, you need to see it from their perspective, and not to admit that you are at fault, but you can admit if you don't feel like you did something wrong, but you can say, I understand that what I've done upset you, and I didn't know any better. This is what I know, and I would like to talk more about it, to see how we can, how I can improve in the future, how we can, not have this conflict again. So this would definitely help the other person to open up, to talk. So the likelihood of them to wanting to solve the conflict, because you are addressing it as a conflict, and this is the best thing you know how, and in the future you will know how to do it differently. So you don't want the future conflict, so therefore let's address it now. So this person would take it, think twice before not taking the opportunity to resolve the conflict. It might not happen the first time. They might not be convinced, but you need to keep trying to resolve that conflict. You need to have a plan. You need to prepare for it. It's not something that you would just on the first try you would expect the other person like, yep, I've been waiting for you to do this. No, it's not. It's not like it. But it's how much commitment you have to resolve these conflicts with the other person is really what is important. So I was addressing that question. I don't know if that addresses your question in regards to having the other person to come forward and be part of the solution. I can't hear you. Can you put the microphone?
So I got that first bit where you said something about how you should actually have empathy for the person's current situation, but thinking on it itself, hypothetically, if the person itself were to be in such a position where there's a lot of internal conflict going on with the other person, the other party itself, I'm trying to think in the sense of how going back and referring back to the hadith. So I can't control the other person, so we'll leave that as that. But in regards to making amends with religion, for example, what's the onus on us? It's like we've ceded that the intention itself to make amends, to resolve conflict, but we don't have a cooperative party. So what's the jurisdiction?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, it's important to know what's blocking the other party. What is blocking them from being a partner in that process of resolving the conflict. Understanding that would help you work on resolving and removing that block, whatever is blocking them. Also, for you to see it from their perspective and address it initially from their perspective, and then at that time also explaining it from your perspective, because as I mentioned earlier to the sister, like you have two trains colliding, one going one direction, the other one's going the other direction, and you want to first go with that direction because you have that power. You don't have the power to change the other train. You have the power over your train. So you turn your train around and you do that because that relationship is very important to you. So you go along with that train, even though that train is not going your direction or is not what you think is right. Because at the end of the day, it could be that you're wrong. You don't know, because it's your perspective from the other person's perspective.